Assalamualaikum, welcome to my channel Iman Rutfa Ilm. Please like and subscribe. Ibn Taymiyyah was born in 1263 AD and died in 1328 AD. He was born in Haran in Turkey, in the Mesopotamian region. Ibn Taymiyyah's full name is Taqi al-Din Abu al-Abbas Ahmad ibn Abdul al-Salam ibn Abdullah ibn Muhammad ibn Taymiyyah. He was born in Haran in Turkey on 22nd January 1263. He lived in Haran during the hard time of Mongol invasions. Ibn Taymiyyah was a theologian and logician. His family was well known for religious scholarship. Ibn Taymiyyah was a member of the school founded by Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Like Ahmad ibn Hanbal, he is referred to as Shaykh al-Islam, a title of superior authority on Islamic knowledge. Scholarly achievements of Ibn Taymiyyah's father, Shahabuddin Abdul al-Halim Ibn Taymiyyah, 1284, were also well known. Due to Mongol invasions, his family fled to Damascus in 1268 when he was still young. Damascus was then ruled by Mamluks of Egypt. Now Tatar hordes. In the time of Hulgai Khan, there was a region of the Tatar. At the time, the Tatar hordes under the Hulgai Khan were inflicting their barbaric onslaughts throughout the worlds of Islam, especially the Mesopotamian region. Ibn Taymiyyah was only 7 when the Tatars launched attacks on Haran. Consequently, the populace left Haran to seek refuge elsewhere. Ibn Taymiyyah was later trained by prominent scholars of his time, among them a woman scholar named Zainab bint Makki who taught him hadith. Ibn Taymiyyah was always an industrial student, and later he acquainted himself with secular and religious sciences and the study of Arabic literature and lexicography. Well, this woman, Zainab bint Makki, she was a scholar. She has attained an ijazah at the age of 1. She had to begin purging her Quran till the age of 60 years. She lived 94 years of her age. Now he became an expert in the great Arab grammarian Sabhi Wahiz al-Kitab, which is regarded as the greatest authority on grammar and syntax. He also pointed out the errors therein. He commanded knowledge of all prose and poetry then available. Furthermore, he studied the history of both pre-Islamic Arabia and that of post-Islamic period. He also learned mathematics and calligraphy. Throughout his history, Sunni scholars and thinkers have praised Ibn Taymiyyah for his works. His scholarly zeal combined with his intense partisanship and hypergraphia led many contemporaries, later observers, most notably Ibn Battuta, to consider him mentally unbalanced. He was a famous navigator. Later he became the representative of the Hanbali school of thought and studied jurisprudence from his father and looked after in the Quran, Sunnah and Sirah. Ibn Taymiyyah had a great love for tafsir Quran exegesis. He read for 100 commentaries of the Quran. He studied theology, Kalam, philosophy and Sufism. He used to refute the Christians. His student, Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya, authored the famous poem O Christ Worshipper, which unapologetically examines the dogma of the Trinity bounded by many Christian sects. He completed his studies when he was a teenager, and at 19 he became a professor of Islamic studies. Now, he started giving fatwas on religious legal matters without following any of the traditional legal schools like Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi and Hanbali, and he was well versed in Quranic studies, Hadith, fiqh theology and Arabic grammar and scholastic theology. He defended the authentic prophetic traditions by arguments which, although taken from the Quran and the Sunnah, had been unfamiliar to people of his time. The freedom of his polemics made him many enemies among the scholars of the traditional Orthodox schools, who falsely accused him of all kinds of heretic beliefs. He was imprisoned for several times due to his outspokenness and for conflicting with ijma of jurists and theologians of his day. His troubles with government began when he went with a delegation of ulama to talk to Ghazan Khan of Iran to stop his attacks on the Muslims. It is reported that not one of the ulama dared to say anything to the Khan except Ibn Taymiyyah, who said, You claim that you are a Muslim and you have with you Moses, Muftis, Imams, and Sheikh, but you invaded us and reached our country for what? Well, your father and your grandfather, who were non-believers, they did not attack and they kept their promise. But you promised and broke your promise. Ibn Taymiyyah, he is known for his saying, "What my enemies can possibly do to me." He was banned from having any books, papers, and pen during his imprisonment. Ibn Taymiyyah died while in prison 22nd Zulqa'dah 728 AD 27 September 1328. Al-Wazhar says once the people had heard of his death, not a single person in Damascus was able to attend the prayer wanted to remain until he appeared and took time out for it. As a result, the market in Damascus were closed, a lot of transactions of livelihood were stopped. Governors, heads, college jurists came out. They said that none of the majority of the people failed to turn up, according to my knowledge, except the three individuals. They were well known for their enmity for Ibn Taymiyyah, and thus they hid away from the truth. Now his contributions, forbidding the evil, conducting the good, he launched an intellectual attack on polytheism, innovations with Bid'ah by the way of intellectual discourse, through direct debates, books, and letters. He presented the opinions of his opponents only to refute their arguments. He was against the Christian doctrine of Trinity and persuaded Christians to accept Islam. For example, he wrote a letter to then the Christian king of Cyprus to invite Islam. His jihad against the Tatars. He clarified the reality of the condition and showed that it was an obligation to fight them. He illustrated the cause for victory and explained that it was not impossible to difficult to achieve victory over them if the Muslims adopt the causes that achieve victory, such as judging by Islamic law, putting an end to oppression, spreading justice, and being sincere in one's intention and performing jihad in Allah's cause. Now he has contributed to most of his works in writing books. The existing works of Ibn Taymiyyah are great in number despite the fact that a portion of his works have perished. He left a considerable book of work, 350 workers listed by his student Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah, and 500 by the student al-Dahabi. His works have been republished extensively in Syria, Egypt, and Arabia and Iran, and some of them have been translated into English. Some of his works is Majmu' al-Fatwa al-Kubra, Majmu' al-Fatwa, compilation of Fatawa, al-Aqidah al-Hamawiyya, the creed to the people of Hamawiyya, al-Aqidah al-Wasila, the creed, al-Asma wal-Sifat, Allah's names and attributes, volume 1 and 2, Al-Iman, the faith, Kitab al-Wasiyyah, principle of Islamic faith, Kitab al-Aqidah al-Sirat al-Mustaqeen, on the necessity of the straight path. There are other books like Al-Jawab al-Sahih, al-Iman Badhala Din al-Masih, the correct response to those who are corrupted, the Deen religion of Jesus Christ, the Muslim theology's response to Christianity, 7 volumes, over 1,000 pages. Al-Sarir Masul al-Shaytin, Shayati, Fatwa al-Kubra, Fatwa al-Misriha. Al-Ubaidullah Al-Qaeda Sila is still available on purchase. Al-Rad al-Mutaqin, refutation of Greek logician. Al-Ubaidullah, subjugation to God. Al-Aqidah al-Wasidiyah, the famous book, was written in response to a request from a gent from Wasi asking him to write his view on theology in Islam. In the first chapter, Ibn Taymiyyah defines one group which is called al-Firq al-Najila, Najiyah, the group of survival. He quotes a hadith that the Prophet, peace be upon him, says that only one group of his followers will stay on the truth until the day of resurrection. Chapter 2 contains the views of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah regarding the attributes of God based on Quran and Sunnah without the ta'til, rejection, tamsil, anthropomorphism, tahrif, changing his attribute, and taif, questioning his attribute. This book contains a 6-part of faith for Muslims, namely belief in God, His angels, His messengers, His books, the day of resurrection. Al-Sari al-Rasul al-Shaitan al-Rasul, the drawn sword against those who insult the messenger. The book was written in response to an incident in which Ibn Taymiyyah heard a Christian insulting the Prophet, peace be upon him. It was written entirely by memory while he was in prison and quoting more than hundreds of references. He also wrote a lengthy response to a letter by Bishop Paul of Antioch, which he had circulated widely in the Muslim world. Some of his works translated into English: The Friends of God, The Friends of Satan, Kitab al-Iman, The Book of Faith, Diseases of the Hearts and the Cures, Relief from Justice, Fundamentals in Joining Good and Forbidding Ill, The Concise Legacy, The Goodly World, The Medinan Way, Ibn Taymiyyah Against Greek Logicians. What did the letters he had made from the prison? He wrote a letter to his mother. In the letter, Ibn Taymiyyah, what he did, he apologizes his mother, and he says, yes, it was not our choice to be far from you. Had birds been able to carry us, we would have come to you willingly. But Ghaib, the absent one, on Udair when him, had you able to look deeply into the affairs of Muslims, you would have not showed, alhamdulillah, for me another place to the one I am now. Nevertheless, I had never intended to reside here permanently. Instead, I pray istikhara to Allah to and guide you and do the right choice, and I pray you for well-being. He also written that it's happiness for the son of Adam to practice istikhara and be pleased with what Allah had ordained for him, and is the misery of the son of Adam to drop istikhara of Allah and be displeased at Allah's decrees. He said, finally convey my salam to entire household, young and old, and rest of the neighbors and farms, relatives, one by one. Well, in response to the letter, what his mother writes, he says she gives the response to his greetings and said, indeed, I raised you for the likes of this, swore you the service of Islam, and taught you the laws of religion. Certainly never imagine, oh my son, that you bring near me is more loved to me than you being close to your religion and your service to Islam and the Muslims throughout the various territories. Rather, oh my son, the epitome of my being pleased with you is only according to the amount of what you put forward for your religion. Letter to his brothers and students in Damascus. His words in the letters are full of his love and advice to his beloved brothers and students. He also extends forgiveness to those who conspired to imprison him. Now he also wrote a letter to the king of Cyprus. He wrote a letter to the then Christian king of Cyprus, inviting him to Islam and exposing the lies and corruption being committed by the priests and monks, while they fully knew well that they were upon false. After mentioning the devoutness of the king, his love for knowledge and good conduct towards the people, Ibn Taymiyyah invites him to embrace the Islam and adopt a correct belief. He does this in a gentle, exemplary manner, addressing his intellect towards the Muslims, not to start the chain for a single of them. Ibn Taymiyyah is a distinguished figure and a great mujahid in Islam, whose knowledge encompasses various fields of studies. His dedication in conveying the teachings of Islam, writing books, and spreading knowledge inspires every Muslim to do the same. May God help us to benefit from his knowledge. He was buried in the Sufi cemetery of Damascus, which is still today.